Hare Krishna. So we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura, Text 30. It's December 1st, 2024. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 30. We'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Yagyasya cha vitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam. Now one line at a time. Yagyasya chavitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam. Yagyasya chavitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam. Yagyasya chavitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam. Would someone else like to lead the chanting?
Yagyasya chavitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho Yasya cha Sankyasya
Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam.
Yagyasya chavitanani
Yagyasya chavitanani
yogasya Patha Prabho
yogasya cha Patha Prabho Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam.
Yagyasya chavitanani
Yagyasya chavitanani
yogasya cha Patha Prabho
yogasya cha Patha Prabho
Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya
Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya
Tantram Bhagavat Smritam.
Tantram Bhagavat Smritam.
Yagyasya vitanani yogasya cha Patha Prabho
yogasya cha Patha Prabho
Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya
Naiskarmasya cha Sankyasya Tantram Bhagavat Smritam. Okay, we'll go to the word meanings. Yagyasya, of sacrifices. Cha, also. Vitanani, expansions. Yogasya, of the mystic powers. Cha, also. Patha, ways. Prabho, O my Lord. Naishkarmyasya, of knowledge. Cha, and Sankyasya, of analytical studies. Tantram, the path of devotional service. Va, as well as. Bhagavat, in relation with the personality of Godhead. Smritam, regulative principles. Translation. Please also describe the expansions of different sacrifices and the paths of mystic powers, analytical study of knowledge, and devotional service, all with their respective regulations. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word tantram is significant herein. Sometimes tantram is misunderstood to be the black spiritual science of materialistic persons engaged in sense gratification, but here tantram means the science of devotional service compiled by Srila Narada Muni. One can take advantage of such regulative explanations of the path of devotional service and make progressive advancement in the devotional service of the Lord. Sankhya philosophy is the basic principle of acquiring knowledge, as will be explained by the sage Maitreya. The Sankhya philosophy enunciated by Kapila-Dev, the son of Devahuti, is the real source of knowledge about the supreme truth. Knowledge not based on the Sankhya philosophy is mental speculation and can yield no tangible profit. So before we go into discussion, I'll recite a few more mantras. Some of you are familiar with them, and these mantras, really mainly it's I'm giving a prayer to higher personalities, to pure personalities, that whatever I may speak, I'm authentically, in an authorized way, representing the spirit and content of Srila Prabhupada and Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just not, just like Prabhupada says here about this whimsical mental speculation. I think this, I think that. So just, we could do an hour of, here's what David Wolf thinks about this and that. Really not of much use. Even it would be like waste of an hour of human life. So I'm endeavoring through the distinctive personality that I am to authentically represent Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayambhupakedamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshvare Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 30. Yagyasya cha vitanani yogasya cha patha prabho naiskarmyasya cha sankyasya tantramba bhagavat shmitam Please also describe the expansions of different sacrifices and the paths of mystic powers, analytical study of knowledge, and devotional service, all with their respective regulations. Hare Krishna. So we can see in this question from Vidura to Maitreya. So there's different paths. There's different paths and different processes, and that's again, Srimad Bhagavatam is the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita describes so many paths and so many processes. And so actually there's a saying in Sanskrit, Yatha mata Tatha Patha, Yatha mata Tatha Patha. All paths lead to the same goal. Okay, and we can see that in practical life. Like, for example, let's say if our goal is to get to Los Angeles, we could purchase a ticket for Rio de Janeiro, or Moscow, and it'll all take us to Los Angeles. No, actually, life doesn't work that way. No. If we want to get to Los Angeles, we need to be intentional. So, well, maybe if I go to Nova Scotia, no, well, you can go to Nova Scotia, but there's going to be a particular path that takes you to Los Angeles. So sometimes, to avoid rigorous, serious philosophical discussion, or to avoid commitment to anything, we'll hear Yatha mata Tatha Patha. Whatever you do, it'll all take you to the same place. It's not true in life. It's not true in life. Yeah, kind of like my goal is to get a PhD in physics. Well, whatever you do, if you just hang out at the beach all day, it'll lead you to a PhD. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay. Yeah. So starting the class with sarcasm. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So now there is a sense in which all paths lead to the same place, and that all these different paths, they're meant to lead to bhakti. Okay. So that there's actually truth there. Whether it's the path of jnana or philosophical speculation to make the distinction between body and soul and super soul, or the path of varnashram through fulfilling responsibilities in the social system, or the path of mystic yoga connecting with God in the heart. Okay, so for example, that's a theme of Bhagavad Gita, that it describes so many processes and paths and philosophies. Towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarvadhaman parityagya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma shucha. He says, okay, abandon all these other yoga paths, religious paths, philosophical paths, and just surrender to me 100%, so that it all leads to that. Bhagavad Gita describes, for example, the path of the physical asanas. That's the source book of all that is Bhagavad Gita. I remember in 2010, I was invited to the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in Massachusetts. And so we conducted some Safito programs. Also, we conducted some workshops in mantra yoga, and gave out japa beads and showed everyone how to chant. And so in the Safito seminars we conducted there, it just so happens many of the administrators of Kripalu, they were in the seminar, and they specifically shared, including in written testimonials, how moved they were that they could see everything we're doing is actually based on Bhagavad Gita, which is the actual source book of all yoga. And they understood, and they say, this was 2010, they said like at least 98% of what's going on in the name of yoga these days, even the teachers, they don't have a clue of what the source is. They don't, and they said it's very sad. So they were very enlivened by that aspect. So Bhagavad Gita talks about the Hatha yoga like that, and then right towards the conclusion of that section, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana bhajatam sharvan bhajateyomam sameyuktatamo mata. And he said, and the goal of all that in the asanas is to control the mind and senses, to have that peaceful inner space, so that the soul comes to that consciousness. The soul comes to the consciousness of full, pure, enthusiastic devotion to me, to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Krishna talks about the jnana system, philosophical speculation system. Fine. It's a bona fide path. It's a bona fide path. And then at the conclusion of that section, Krishna says, Bahunam janmananante Agyanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvami te samahatma sudurlabha. He says, okay, and the purpose, the goal of all that, one who's sincere and not just like attached to I'm smart and look how intelligent I am, one who's really sincere to come to the truth through that cognitive process will come to full surrender to me. And we can mention 5 or 6 other types of paths, all described, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and the goal is bhakti. So, like that. And then it's described in the Bhagavatam, Dharma Svanusita Pumsa Vikshvaksena Katasya no Padayadyadirati Shrama Evahi Kevalam. And whatever we're doing in our job, in our career, in our relationships, in our attempts at study, attempts at relationships, if it's not bringing us to attraction to serve Krishna with inspiration, then according to Bhagavatam, Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam, useless waste of time. Actually, it emphasizes it, useless, complete, utter waste of time. So once to make sure we're getting it. So that's the purpose. That's the purpose of all these other paths. Otherwise, we're squandering our human form of life. So the question could be asked, whether it's here. So how come all these different paths? Why not just? So just like an expert teacher, right? Just like an expert teacher with the children, or whether it's adult students or children, a teacher will know, like, oh, okay, I'm going to meet. That's called empathy. I'm going to meet this student where they're at, connect with them where they're at, and from that inspire them to grow in knowledge. So a teacher might say, oh, this student, just make eye contact, then they respond very wonderfully. This student, get them moving, maybe play a song and dance, then they're ready to absorb and learn. Or this student, just kind of softly make them touch their hand, then they're tuned in. Okay, like that. So we would think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would be a top-level educator. We would think. So similarly, for individuals and for different groups, he meets spiritual beings having a human experience, referencing Teilhard de Chardin there. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. He meets us where we're at, and not just to meet where we're at for the sake, meets us where we're at, and from that place and from that consciousness inspires us towards pure bhakti, inspires us towards self-realization, towards realizing I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. Jivara Srupoi Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beta Prakash, Beta Prakash. I'm spirit, soul, and the nature of the soul is to engage in Krishna's service. And an example I've often given, like from the Old Testament, the Judaic literatures. Okay, so we were just discussing that last night with Madhusudan Prabhu. And so, so for example, right in the first chapter of Genesis, Bereshit, the books of the Hebrew Bible, they're named after the first word. So it's actually the Bible begins, the first sentence of the first book is Genesis, and right at the beginning of Genesis, the first words are Bereshit ba Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Translation: in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Okay, and that's I just gave the Hebrew for that. That wasn't Sanskrit. Okay, right. So in that same chapter, so in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So and then in the first chapter, God, we can look at any area. We're looking at food. Everyone eats. So in the first chapter, God says, okay, here's kind of the proper ideal diet for humans, vegetarian, seeds and fruits and vegetables. First chapter of the Bible. Okay. All right. So then, for the most part, then time went on, and humans largely were not following that. Okay. So then later, there's what's called the Noahide laws. This is before the Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments, like don't worship idols, and don't steal, don't commit adultery, things like that. And so, actually, one thing again, we'll get. So, like it says, don't worship. Also, often that commandment is used to try to emphasize, to illustrate, to establish that God has no form. Don't worship idols. But actually, in the actual Hebrew, what it says, what the word God is using is al panai. Panai means face, like Shenam Punam, like face, okay? So what God is actually saying there is don't worship any face, don't worship any form, except for my face and my form. So in the commandment that's often used to try to establish that God has no form, God's saying, I have a form, worship that. Don't worship the golden calf. Don't worship, don't worship money. Don't worship this rock and roll star like that. But worship, serve my transcendental form. Serve my transcendental form. Actually, I remember this is in the Krishna Israel and the Jews book. But anyhow, we had some Matajis going on Sankirtan. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And they had like Prabhupada's books. And anyhow, they went to some it was in Haifa, and they were going to a car mechanic's garage. It was a Muslim car mechanic, a Muslim car mechanic. So they showed him the books, and he was seeing all these forms, like forms of the Supreme. And he said, haram, haram. Like, oh, no, no, we don't accept form. We don't serve form. No, spiritual means, no, we don't, we don't accept form. And so it was kind of an embarrassing situation. So then the Mati, one was Mahalakshmi, the other was Nagapatni. And so the Mati said, well, obviously you do accept form. I mean, look around. It was kind of embarrassing. So all around his garage shop, there were all these forms of, it was the Middle East version of like Playboy and Penthouse magazine, all these pictures around. He actually had forms all around his garage. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, but so then he was so embarrassed. He gave them a very sizable donation and took all of Prabhupada's books. What could he do at that point? So the point is, we're going to be attracted to form, and we're going to be attracted to sound vibration. We're going to be attracted to color. We're going to be attracted to personality. Our choice is whether to direct that propensity for attraction to material form or spiritual form, material sound vibration or spiritual sound vibration. So Krishna, God, is meeting us where we're at, whatever our propensity, and always bringing us to self-realization and bhakti. So in the Bible, one of the Noahide laws is don't just slice off the limb of an animal and start eating the limb. Okay, so what's that mean? It means people at that time, they were doing things like slicing off the limb of an animal and eating the limb. So he was meeting them where they're at. Okay, and so if he said, okay, just be like completely vegetarian, just like all prasadam, just like vegetarian, no meat, they're not ready for that. But he's meeting them where they're at and inspiring their growth in spiritual life. So he said, and that became like, it was like, okay, if you're going to eat meat, then at least minimize the torture, minimize the suffering, and just kill the animal. Don't let it writhe in pain. Don't let it writhe in pain. Okay, so meeting them where they're at, and then then the laws of kashrut, the laws of kosher, like that. Don't boil a calf in its mother's milk, things like that. But the ideal is clear in the first chapter. It's just one example of God meeting us where we're at and encouraging our growth in spiritual life. The ideal is clear: complete vegetarian. That's what humans are meant for. At least if we want to develop godly qualities. That's just one example. So similarly in the Vedas, of course, we related to that example from the Old Testament. There's a story described in the towards the end of the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Narada Muni, a great sage, pure devotee, Narada Muni, he's walking along, and he's in the forest, and he sees all these animals writhing in terrible pain. Phew. Yeah, painful to like that, disgusting. And then he comes upon the hunter. He comes upon the hunter, and so and then Narada's like, well, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing here? And the hunter says, oh, well, this is my occupation. I'm a hunter. That's how I get the meat and the furs, and I sell for my family and like that. So Narada Muni's like, okay. So but why torture them? Why not just just kill them? And it's still going to be gruesome and painful, but why give them unnecessary agony? So the hunter, now you could think of the hunter, he's just going to attack Narada Muni, but the hunter, as gruesome as his activities were, he clearly had some childlike sincerity and innocence. So he could see this Narada Muni, this is a special person. So he was already getting transformed. And he was hearing from Narada Muni. The transformation was happening. And then the hunter said, well, this is what I learned from my father, to torture the animals. Then we that's how we have fun. We might imagine where the hunter is 6-8 years old on a hunting trip, and the father, yeah, that's how you make the animals squirm in agony, and we really enjoy this. You might imagine. All right, so the hunter was beginning to be transformed, we could say, and he went through some daddy process. True, he went through some mother, father, daddy process. And so you could see, this is something I'm bringing from my father, and this isn't serving me. And so quickly, because Narada Muni is so potent, so through his association, the hunter experienced profound transformation quickly. And then the hunter, he was like, okay, all right, because the Narada Muni was like, hey, look, trust Krishna, put down your bow. Put down your bow and trust. And the hunter was like, okay, I trust, but how will I, support my wife, and like that. And so, okay, so the hunter went through his process. He trusted, and then as it turned out, after Narada Muni left, so then the hunter, Narada Muni's instructions were just with your wife, just chant Hare Krishna and serve and worship the Tulasi plant. The holy Tulasi is a pure devotee of Krishna in the form of a plant. Just serve Tulasi, honor Tulasi, and chant Hare Krishna and trust. And then what happened was, as the days and weeks went by, the villagers, they were so amazed that this gross, vulgar, violent, vicious hunter became the soft-hearted Vaishnava. So they were naturally, bringing offerings of rice and milk and like that. So he had this abundance. He trusted Krishna, trust Krishna. And as that pastime goes on, a little while later, Narada Muni, with his friend, I think it's Agastya Muni, they come around the hunter's cottage again in the forest, and they're coming around, and they're kind of maybe 100 yards from the cottage, and the hunter sees Narada Muni and his friend Agastya Muni. So Yes, right. So the hunter is going to see his spiritual master Narada Muni, but Narada Muni and Gasya, they notice that the hunter is like kind of zigzagging along the way, like zigzagging. So it's like Agastya Muni's like, does he have some sort of mental disorder or what's happening here? So then the hunter gets to Narada, and Agastya offers prostrated obeisances with full love. So as it turns out, the hunter, it was urgent to get to these saintly persons. Same time, in going there, he didn't even want to step on the ant. He didn't even want to step on an ant, so he's making sure he doesn't step on any ants. Transformation. That's transformation. And that so his fun was seeing animals get tortured, and then he transformed to a point. So that's the Vaishnav heart. We don't want to cause pain to any living entity. Full compassion, para dukkha dukhi. We can see, okay, so in that's the essence, coming to bhakti. That's the essence, and the form will look differently. So, for example, for the hunter, the form of his transformation to bhakti, put down your bow. Now, we can contrast that to the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. In just 6 days from now, we're going to be starting our Bhagavad Gita course. Of course, we already started, but we'll have our first class. So, Arjuna's process of bhakti, because Arjuna was at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, I will be spiritual. I will put down my bow. And then when Arjuna got transformation, oh, my process of pure devotion to Krishna, pick up my bow and fight fiercely. So the form might look different, according to our relationship with Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. So just as Krishna meets us where we're at, so Vyasadeva gave all the Vedas, including the Mahabharata, including Bhagavad Gita, he gave the Puranas and the Upanishads, with all those paths that lead to bhakti, but he was despondent. He was despondent. He was depressed. So his spiritual master, same spiritual master as Mrgari the hunter, Vyasadev's spiritual master was also Narada Muni. Narada Muni comes along and Narada Muni says, you look despondent. You look down and out. What's happening? Vyasadeva says, you're deeply empathic. You don't even need to ask. Narada Muni says, you're right. I know what's happening. You've given all the Vedas with all these different paths, which sure, they lead to bhakti, they lead to pure devotional service. but people aren't going to get the point, especially in this Kali Yuga. Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagya Upadruta. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, welcome. We can get a cushion over there. Cushion, yeah, thank you. Thanks for visiting. And so he says, but people are going to miss the point. So as a result of the conversation with his spiritual master, Narada Muni, Vyasadeva goes into a trance of bhakti, bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male, apashat pusham purnam, mayam chayad ahetukam. He goes on the banks of the Sarasvati, this beautiful scenario. There's berry bushes around his cottage. He goes to a trance of bhakti, and in that trance, he sees, okay, the supreme goal is Sri Krishna, the personality of God. Krishna, Brahmano hi pratishtam. He's the source of the Brahmagyoti. He's the source of the oneness. He's the source of all the paths, and at his back is Maya. And so Vyasadeva saw that us living entities in this age of Kali, where it's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, where our tendency, in case no one has noticed, we tend to quarrel over petty nothing. Not saying anyone in this room has that experience. Right, so we're slow like that. So all right. So Vyasadeva said, so as a real anarto pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam and hokshaje. Look, asya janatad vidam chakre satvata samitam. So as a result, Vyasadeva revealed the Bhagavatam. And this is, you might say, this is the partial biography of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, giving bhakti. Because sure, there's all these gradual paths, but then we can lose the thread and go for lifetimes, millions of lifetimes, without getting the real point. So just as Krishna meets us where we're at with all these paths and like that, so similarly, ourselves in relation with ourselves in well, first of all, it's important to know. Yes, so like sometimes freedom is defined as the capacity to commit to our highest good. In that context, so much of what goes in the name of freedom is complete slavery. Okay, because if I'm misidentifying, as Prabhupada says, if I'm misidentifying the self, the actual spiritual self, with the body, now, oh, okay, my highest good is to gratify the body. And then I'm entangling myself, dukkhalayam shashvatam, in misery. It's described in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Injani pranya or Indriyabhya pramana manasastu parabude yobude paratastu sa. There's a hierarchy. So there's the sense objects and the senses. And then more subtle than that, the mind, more subtle than that, the intellect, more subtle than that, the soul. That's who we are. We're the soul. So what's it mean to commit to the highest good for the soul? That's the proper. The verse talks here about respective regulations, committing ourselves to do divine austerity, to voluntarily, enthusiastically accept regulations, such as here we are, 8:45 a.m. on a Sunday morning. There's many things we could be doing. But here we are, we're disciplining ourselves to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, because this supports our highest good. And so to accept the regulative principles of freedom, to support our highest good, and we were talking yesterday with Bhakti and Kelly, we were referencing the verses in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about material happiness and distress. Matras parshas tu konteya shitoshna sukadukada agamapaino nichas tamsti tikshas svabharata. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the winter and summer seasons. Tolerate them without being disturbed. So sparsha means touch. So it's too hot, it's too cold. So with any sense, this tastes good, this doesn't taste good. Or the subtle sense, I'm being insulted, I'm being praised. Okay, so the idea that's going to happen in every sphere, in every sphere of life. Finances, wow, my finances are doing really good. Whoa, this is a crash. I'm really in distress about finances. So in every area of life, we all have these material fluctuations, happiness, distress, every day. So yami navyatiente te pusham pusharshabha samaduka sukam dir somitakvayat kalpate. So Krishna is encouraging us, experiencing them. And to experience them means we're aware of them. It's not like spiritual life means we have no feelings. It means we're aware of the happiness, distress, the envy, the affection, the excitement, the depression. We're aware of all that, right? Carl Jung said, till we make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct our life and we'll call it fate. So if we're not aware of it, that could be the proverbial spiritual bypass. I think I'm transcendental to emotion, but I'm just ignoring, in the name of transcendence, I'm actually ignoring what's happening. So I'm experiencing my physical sensations, thoughts, experiencing emotion, experiencing feeling, and I'm consciously choosing how to relate to them and consciously determining that, okay, I'm experiencing the emotion of fear, I'm experiencing the emotion of anger. I'm not that anger, I'm not that fear. I'm experiencing the feeling of lust, anger, greed, envy. Okay, whatever I'm experiencing, I notice it, and I'm letting that move me to deeper inspiration. For example, if I'm experiencing pain, shame, pretty much always there's a message in that shame. There's something where I'm not in integrity, I'm not aligned with higher values. So let that move me to deeper inspiration and enthusiasm for devotional service. And Krishna says, so one who is steady in bhakti, whatever's happening with the happiness, distress dimension, that's liberation. That's liberation. We had some correspondence recently with Bhakti Namanda. That's liberation. Next say, and even a higher form of liberation where the senses and the mind, they're not even attracted to anything material. Okay, that's a whole nother discussion. It's like the gopis and the cowherd boys, like that. When ihayasya harerdasya karmana manasagira nikilas vapyavastasu jivan mukta suyuchite. Rupa Goswami says we get to experience liberation in this body by continuing whatever our experience, whatever our senses are doing, mind is doing, whatever's happening there. And again, I'm being praised or insulted, or it's comfortable, it's not comfortable. Whatever that, we continue with enthusiasm for bhakti. That's the liberated platform. That's a liberated platform. And so, so just like Krishna meets us where we're at, so we get to meet ourselves where we're at, but not just to be complacent. I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, but experiencing our experience as a platform for intense movement, intense growth towards realizing who we are as soul, and as Jivaras Hupuri Krishnara Nityadasa, servants of Krishna, and also in our sharing with others. Lord Chaitanya said, Pritivite Achiyata Nagaradi Gram Sarvatra Prachara Hoy Be Moranam. He says that this Krishna consciousness is meant to be spread to every town and village in the corner of the earth, and the whole universe, actually. And of course, so because Srila Prabhupada, actually, some in the movement of Lord Chaitanya, they assume that when it said every town and village, Pritiviti Achiyata Nagaradi Ram Sarvatra Prachara Hoy Be Moranam, some assume, well, of course that means India. What Prabhupada and Bhakti said, they're like, no, it means Alachua, Florida. It means every town and village in Russia and France and New Zealand and Australia. So Prabhupada had that vision. So he's living his life to fulfill that vision. And that's why here we are in some remote corner of the world called Alachua County, Florida. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, he visited Gainesville, and he gave a talk. He gave several talks. He gave one talk at the Plaza of the Americas, and he said, here we are in this remote corner of the world. Can you believe he referred to Gainesville, Florida, home of the Gators? Oh my God, what kind of perspective is that? You know, so simply, there's letters from Srila Prabhupada. There's one letter Prabhupada writes in December 1972 to Balavanta Prabhu. Balavanta, he's a well-known lawyer in North Florida, and also graduate of advanced seminar. Just thought to throw that in there. Okay, and so Prabhupada writes, Balavanta, he was running for political office in Atlanta. Running for political office, I think for mayor of, and under Prabhupada's direction, Balavanta formed the In God We Trust party, political party. At some point, Prabhupada brought it to a close because it had its, it had its completion. But so he wrote to Balavanta. He said, my dear Balavanta, if we want to attract intelligent people to the Krishna consciousness movement, we need to be excellent listeners. Excellent listeners. I mean, like really, Prabhupada wasn't saying, and whatever nonsense they speak, we should agree with them. No, so we should understand their points of view. So especially we want to attract intelligent people. And he cited the pastime from, again, the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, this is weird. Yeah. Lord Chaitanya listening for several days to Prakashananda Saraswati. No, several days to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was speaking, impersonal Mayavad speculation. And Lord Chaitanya, he could have just like, well, the Vedas say this, the Vedas say, yeah, but you say this, but this, that. Lord, he just listened for days and days, and Prabhupada cites that. And then, as the saying goes, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. And so Sarvabhauma got like, wow, you're really caring what I have to say. So at some point after several days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, then he was like, well, what do you think? What's your perspective? And Lord Chaitanya was like, well, since you ask. And then he established the bhakti conclusion of all the Vedas, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya experienced complete 100% transformation. And then he was this kind of dry, speculative philosopher, and like that. And then after his transformation, he was jumping up and down in the streets, singing Hare Krishna, and all the other scholars like, what happened to Sarvabhauma? Like that. So complete transformation through the potency of Lord Chaitanya, starting with deep listening, starting with deep listening. People don't care what you know till they know that you care. So a few themes here I'll bring to closure. Yeah, so in one sense, it's nonsense. Yatha Mata, Tatha Patha, all paths lead to the same. No, if we want to get to Los Angeles, there's a particular ticket to Los Angeles, and we like that. And at the same time, if we're all paths are meant to lead, all bona fide paths are meant to lead to pure bhakti to Krishna. That's not David Wolf's opinion. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. That's Bhagavad Gita. That's Srila Vyasadeva. And so just like, and I remember back in my late teens, early 20s, I was beginning to read Prabhupada's books. It's been like 1980, and like that. And, I was taking a lot of prasada. I'm beginning to hear some of the philosophy classes from Stambadas Prabhu. And I would visit I was studying philosophy in the university. I remember I visited a born-again Christian group, and very nice people, very nice. And I would ask, well, okay, what about like these practitioners of Krishna consciousness? And the answer would be, well, they're Satan, they're gonna burn in hell forever. Okay. Wasn't satisfying for my intellect. Then a few months, half year later, I studied at Eish HaTorah, Fire of the Torah, in the Iratika, in the old city of Jerusalem, the home of religious Judaism. I went to Buddhist centers and like that, and no one had like a philosophical, psychological, conceptual platform to handle the devotees. Okay, in a way that in some way matched my experience and satisfied my intellect. Like it's just no. Whereas what I'm getting from Srila Prabhupada, I can understand the principle of God meets us where we're at. So Jesus is a pure devotee. We don't need to say he's just. I remember when I was talking to some religious Jewish rabbis in 1980, 83, 84. I said, well, look what, and so well, they said, well, Jesus, I'm not saying like your typical secular Jew that you'll meet in Florida will say this, but the top Jewish rabbis at that time, they would say Jesus was a liar and a cheater and this and that, like that. They couldn't handle it. So we can see here, like, oh yeah, so Jesus is a pure devotee, and he's giving so Buddha is a pure devotee, and he's giving the essential principles of self-realization, love of God, and the details might be different according to time and circumstance, just like an expert teacher will, maybe to one student approach it this way. To one student might give 2 + 2 is 4. To the university graduate student will teach integral calculus. But the goal of the teacher is always to meet you where you're at and encourage you to expand your knowledge of math. So just that whole principle is just like such a wide, broad, completely accommodating with a clear goal, with the clear goal. And so like, yeah, wherever we go in any legitimate spiritual tradition, there it is. For example, to chant the names of God. Chant the name. When Srila Prabhupada, like if he'd be in Iran in those days, Iran was 70s. It was kind of an open society, different from now. But they would go to Iran. He wasn't telling them you have to chant Hare Krishna. He was saying you have a name for God. You have 99 names for God. Chant the names of Allah. You go to the Christian monastery. You have a name for God. Chant the names of Jesus, like that. And then if someone or a group was like, you don't have a name for God, we have an idea for you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So one God, many names. One, just like I'm one person, and according to my different relationships, someone might call me Dr. Wolf. Someone might call me David. Two people on the planet call me Dad. Okay, so one person, different relationships. So if we're like that, so God, one person, and unlimited names. And Lord Chaitanya says, Nam Namakri Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrabita Nyamita Smarane Nakle Tadrashi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordevam Idrashami Hajani Nanuraga. He says, and all of the names of God are filled with purity and transformation, spiritual transformational potency to cleanse the heart and bring us to our original bliss of bhakti. So any name of God, it's one, and there's distinctions. And for different reasons, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is especially recommended for self-realization in this age. At the same time, if someone's not comfortable chanting Hare Krishna, then chant whatever legitimate, means we don't concoct. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, yeah, any bona fide name for God. But he said, and chant that and see your experience and compare that. Prabhupada would say, and try chanting for an hour. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. No one's going to last an hour chanting that because it's dry material vibration. So iti shodashakam nam nam kalikamasha nashanam. This particular Hare Krishna mantra is especially recommended to develop love for God in this age. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhakti Hugo, Hare Krishna, welcome. Thank you all for your attention. Thanks for giving your attention to Srimad Bhagavatam. I welcome at this time, where we got Anasuya and Kara here online. We got about 12 or 15 here in person. Any questions or comments at this time? Any questions or comments?
Will you read the original English translation, Ben?
What's that?
Will you read the English
Sure,
translation?
sure, okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 30. Please also describe the expansions of different sacrifices and the paths of mystic powers, analytical study of knowledge, and devotional service, all with their respective regulations. Hare Krishna. Bhakti Namanda.
I just want to comment. I like what you just said about how you can chant any name of God, because my mom, I was raised Catholic,
Yeah.
and my mom asked me, do you celebrate Christmas still? And I was like, well, we'll read the Bible. And she's like, really? She was like shocked. And I just like the point that all paths lead to bhakti. So it doesn't really, it's like not exclusive to chant Hare Krishna. It's like you can still, worship Jesus as a pure devotee and be engaged in bhakti. So
Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for sharing your experience with your mother. I was surprised you read the Bible. I mean, so I'm scheduled to be in Switzerland for Christmas this year. And last year I was in Switzerland for Christmas. And we had a most wonderful Bhakti Christmas. And as you might be aware, here for the past 12 years or so, we've been doing a Christmas special Bhakti Yoga program. Mother Malini and myself, I imagine at Malini's place. And they're so wonderful. And we read that, we read the Bible. When Jesus was asked what's the most important verse in the Bible, of course, Bible meant what we call the Old Testament, but it was just the Testament. There was no New Testament. Right? Jesus did not start Christianity. Okay, so he quoted essentially the Maha Mantra from the Old Testament. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Bok Shem Kavod Machuto Leolam Vaed V'Hafta Et Adonai Elecha B'Kol Levavcha B'Kol Nafshcha B'Kol Modecha. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. It's a intensively bhakti verse, an intensively bhakti verse. So my attraction to, my interest in, my enthusiasm about Jesus has been increased like 1,000,000-fold since I came to Prabhupada. And just my background, I didn't, kind of like, I didn't grow up with Christmas, Hare Krishna, okay? I didn't grow up with, we had, actually, Hanukkah isn't even a particularly important holiday in Judaism. It's not, but it became important because like the Jewish kids, like everyone else getting gifts. Yeah, this is true. This is true. And so Hanukkah falls kind of around Christmas. So then the Jews made it like a big thing. Like, okay, you get gifts too at this time of year, like that. So I didn't have like a negative view towards you, but so I've developed such respect, appreciation, awe, and reverence for Jesus since I came to Prabhupada, and because that's Prabhupada's mood. So Prabhupada about Jesus is he is our spiritual master, and so I can say for sure. Now that you're doing this bhakti thing, now you don't have regard for it. No, my understanding, my appreciation for Jesus and Moses and that whole thing. Because like this was this was not several years ago, but there was someone in our Safatov community. She was a devout Christian, like really sincere, like really sincere in her heart towards Jesus. At the same time, I'll say, and so this was all very foreign, but she was attracted to the Safatov, but and all this other foreign, and she would come to our bhakti. She would stay at Malini's Bhakti Yoga retreat to learn sadhana, because she had, I believe in Jesus. And again, I'm not saying she was shallow, she was so deep in her, but in her particular church, it was just like, they didn't have a process. So after coming to the Bhakti Yoga retreat and coming to several of our programs, she created a Jesus-centered sadhana, getting up at 4 a.m. and chanting Jesus mantras and studying, because even like I read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. I read the Bible covered after I came to Prabhupada. Till that, I read parts. I was in the yeshiva, here and there like that. But when I came to Prabhupada, I was excited to read the Bible. So I'm just like resonating with the experience you share. Mother Anasuya.
Hi, Krishna. Oops, I thought I was on it. Anyway, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this conversation. And I found that with my coworkers, Jesus comes up during the Christmas season. And everyone is in awe when they say, hey, do you know about Jesus? And do you celebrate Christmas? And so, I had the same sweet connection with my coworkers. And so now I'm like being invited to beautiful church services during the Christmas season because there's a lot of joyful singing. There's a live nativity set. So it's really opened and expanded awareness for God consciousness in our office. And so I appreciate Christian consciousness. Gosh, I'm out of breath. I don't know why. I guess I'm so excited about it. This is just a joyful season. And so really appreciating the conversation, and nice to be with you this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anasuya. Thanks for sharing. And I hear the emotion, the excitement in your voice as you're as you're sharing about, yeah, because, yeah, I mean, I feel safe to say you're always a pious soul, and like that. At the same time, I hear your affection, your appreciation, your awe for Jesus is increased the past 10, 12 years since you came to Krishna consciousness. Adele, you're so excited about this special season, the time of the appearance of Jesus. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Rasa Sindhu Prabhu.
Thank you for your class. I was reflecting on what you mentioned, that Srila Prabhupada said that any name of God, any bona fide name of God, you can chant and then you'll come to God realization. There are certain Gaudiya traditions where they chant specific mantras that we don't chant. So for instance, sometimes in temples in West Bengal, in Mayapur, other places, I've seen Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram.
Yeah.
That's a mantra that we chant. And there were some devotees in the early days who started chanting that mantra, and Srila Prabhupada opposed that.
Yeah.
He said that, no, that's not our tradition. So I'm trying to reconcile the two ideas of any name of God, any bona fide name of God, as a means of spiritual realization, as opposed to something that is in our tradition but not authorized, so to say. And how do we understand that?
Well, thanks for your sharing and comment. Yeah, Prabhupada writes about that right there in the purports to Chaitanya Charitamrita. He even writes he even writes the unauthorized mantra. Right there in the purports, and he explains it there in the Adi Leela. Yeah, and so that's where it's the oneness. Like if someone's chanting that Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna, they're chanting the name of God. They're going to make advancement, and so it's auspicious in a sense. It's auspicious in a sense. It's all one, all the names of God. Okay, then there's the distinctions part. And then, so that's the Achintya Beta Tattva. How is it one and what's the distinction? So the distinctions gets into more nuanced aspects of the science of bhakti, and that gets into the study of rasa bhasa. And so it's not like a mechanical thing. It's all auspicious. We're chanting just like if you start talking about or chanting the name of David Wolf or Dear Govinda Das, that's so pleasing. Okay, we like to hear our name chanted and glorified. But here's the thing: even if you're talking about me negatively, still there's something better there than you ignoring me. Okay, there is. Okay, we all have we like our name to be chanted and like that. It means I'm making an effect. I'm having an effect, and if it's negative, that's all your stuff anyway. Okay, so all right, so okay, so it's about pleasing a person, right? It's the chanting the names of God. It's a prayer. The meaning of Hare Krishna mantras. Please, Krishna, engage me in your service. So it's a prayer, and simultaneously it's the answer to the prayer. Because the foundational service we get to do for God is chant God's name. So it's a prayer and the answer to the prayer. So we're pleasing God personally. And so certain names of God combined, it's not pleasing. It's a name of God, so it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's transcendental vibration, but it's not personally pleasing. And to get into how come that's not personally pleasing, that gets more into the subtleties of the science. Prabhupada talks about the science of bhakti yoga here. So it's a very intricate science, and that mantra you quoted, but Prabhupada quotes it right there in his purports, Nitai Gaur. It's not pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. It's not pleasing to put the same mantra with him and Srimati Radharani and Krishna. So we're not really pleasing him. So we're really impeding our spiritual life. But it is transcendental vibration. So whereas Hare Krishna mantra, it's clean, fully authorized. I appreciate your question. Bhakti Hugo Prabhu.
Point, I'm reminded that Srila Prabhupada has made a remark as well. Definitely in conversation, he may have written it somewhere as well. but kind of addressing the point, like, why don't we chant the names of Lord Chaitanya? I mean,
Yeah.
to some extent we do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mantra, but why do we chant 16 rounds of
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
yeah.
Maha Mantra when
Yeah.
we're in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Yeah.
And he makes the remark that it's like, there's some groups that do chant the names of Lord Chaitanya, but what did Lord Chaitanya do? Lord Chaitanya
Yeah.
chanted the names of Krishna.
Yeah.
And so he makes that distinction that that's the higher level of following.
Yeah.
Not just like Srila Prabhupada when he came to the West and he started the Krishna conscious movement, and people started calling them, oh, the Hare Krishnas. And Srila Prabhupada was very happy because they could have been like, oh, the Prabhupada people, the Bhakti Vedanta people.
Yeah.
But no, they said Hare Krishna. And for Srila Prabhupada, that was like a big success, that, oh, wonderful, like I'm not the center of attention, but
Yeah.
Krishna is the center of
Yeah.
attention. That was very important for him. And so I'm reflecting on that importance of following.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to glorify the next step in the line. It's another thing to like really serve the next step in the line by following their example. So that came to mind with kind of the topic at hand.
I appreciate very much your sharing. Thanks for that, Dr. Hugo. Yeah, following up on that, because in some calculation, it could be said the Panchatattva mantra is more powerful than Hare Krishna Maha Mantra because Lord Chaitanya is more magnanimous. That's there. Also, why don't we chant 16 rounds of Panchatattva? And then thanks for bringing that to the Prabhupada, because it's not like a mathematical calculation. Where to please Lord Chaitanya, he wants us to immerse ourselves in chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And like how you said it and how you shared that, Bhakti Hugo, I'm reminded of, okay, you said so like Srila Prabhupada, he's pleased over Hare Krishna people like that, because that Srila Prabhupada's purpose was to make Krishna known and Krishna's glorious known. Just if I think of my experience, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, 1960s, 1970s. Okay, where are we going with this? We'll see. All right, so let's say David Wolf there, early mid 70s, 14, 15 years old. And if you had asked me, and I wasn't like into yoga or spirituality, wasn't searching for God, wasn't into Indian mysticism, anything like that. Okay. And if you had asked me, have you ever heard of Guru Maharaji? I'd say I've heard of Guru Maharaji. Have you ever heard of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi? I heard of Maharishi. Have you ever heard of Rajneesh? Yeah, I heard of that guy. If you ask me, have you ever heard of Hare Krishna? I'd say, I've heard of Hare Krishna. None of these things would have moved me, but I heard of them. Have you ever heard of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada? I said, no, never heard that name. And I'm saying, this is anecdotal, but I'm saying for me, it reveals something, because these others, their goal was that they'll be known. And so they're just, some obscure 14-year-old in suburban Philadelphia. I heard of them. And Prabhupada's goal, that you'll hear of Hare Krishna. I heard of Hare Krishna. Right. So then I view a substantial part of my purpose and mission that the world will know Prabhupada. Because that wasn't his mission. But I view that as a substantial part of my mission. Hare Krishna. Anything else before we close?
I was moved by what you said about moving from feelings. What you said about feelings, like was like the goal isn't to not have feelings, but to embrace our feelings.
Yes. To experience them, be aware of them.
To experience them.
Machas Prashas, yeah.
When I was going back to I'm practicing bhakti yoga for close to a decade, and then even in the first couple of years, kind of hearing Prabhupada saying we're not this body.
Yeah.
Even becoming kind of frustrated, okay, keep saying we're not this
Keep
body.
saying,
I get it, but how much do I realize it daily?
Yeah.
Not so much, but like, okay, he keeps saying we're not the body, like, okay, I keep reading this, so this is important, you know, coming back to like, okay, so to realize that, and then you went to what's more subtle.
Yeah.
So like, if the goal is like, okay, stop repeated birth and death, and get our spiritual body.
Yeah, to revive our spiritual body.
Go back to that.
Yeah.
And then what's in between is like more subtle things, more subtle elements that are also temporary. The body is material and temporary. Mind, emotions, intelligence, like that. And so I think now, like, that still very much in the process of my behavior reflects that I'm not living in a way that's realized.
Yeah.
That I'm not this body.
Yeah.
And yet it's not what I like wrestle with as much. I more wrestle with that I'm not the emotions, especially when I feel hurt. You know, and I'm like emotionally hurt.
Yes.
And then go to anger to defend. And so today, I guess what moved me was, you know, to experience the experience. Like I've heard that before, experience my experience. And yet there's maybe my ego, the part of me that's hurt, that gets angry, my false ego.
Yeah.
Goes, well, no, let's run away from feelings. And I just noticed this inner dialogue. Let's run away from feelings. Let me find the numbness or find the. It's just like I want to end feeling. Wouldn't that be great? Because it's like just still wrestling with identity that I am these feelings.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to detach from I am these feelings?
Yeah.
And yet you were saying experience those feelings.
Experience.
So
I was saying, and I'm asserting that that's what Krishna is saying. When he says tolerate happiness and distress, tam titikshasva bharata. I appreciate where you're going, that because to tolerate, Krishna is implying experience the experience of whether it's envy, jealousy, happiness, distress, fear, and that's conscious living. That's conscious. If I'm beach balling the experience, numbing it, again to quote Carl Jung, it'll drive our life from beneath the conscious surface. In those experiences, let's say an experience of pain. Some of you have participated in like Safatov seminars. We have different processes where we connect with, you know, not to wallow in it, but things we feel like shameful about, things like that, right? And so, you know, we're not going to do a process here. I'm just sharing that. Okay, so so what's the point? Because the idea is like, let's feel the shame of that. Let's feel the pain, not to indulge. I'm so terrible. That's not the point. But let's feel the pain of that. Let's feel the regret of the damage I've done to myself, and let's feel that, not just to feel, but let that move me to enthusiasm and greater dedication to the higher principles of life, self-realization and bhakti, and truly liberating myself from this embarrassing condition. Let that move me to regular principles of freedom. Whereas if I'm not feeling the pain, I'm going to make the same mistakes again and again and again. So I'm not promoting, right? Feel your feelings like some new age thing, but be conscious, experience our experience, and let that experience move me to deeper dedication to the regulative principles of freedom from the sources of misery, from all of the self-sabotaging behavior. And I don't think anymore, but certainly in those first years I was reading Prabhupada's books, I would be like, Srila Prabhupada, you're saying like for the thousandth time, we're not this body. I already know that. So it's like, because Prabhupada out like Vyasadeva, he really wants us to get it. He really wants us to get it. So our actions reveal our level of realization or lack of it. So Prabhupada, like because he just like there's the Yaya Samohi to Jivo Atmakam Shikunatmakam Paropi Manute Partha Tatkritam Chabipadyate. Vyasadeva saw in his trance of bhakti. He saw people were suffering like anything, and that's increasing as Kali Yuga goes on. And the root cause of that miserable suffering was misidentification of the eternal spiritual self with the temporary body. And because Vyasadeva, he really wanted to relieve us of our suffering, he revealed Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's Prabhupada's mood. So, so how much, because I can say, oh, I understand, I'm not the body. Well, if we were to have a hidden video of how David Wolf lives his life in any given 24 hours, it's like, doesn't look like you have so much realization, you're not this body. So, and to come to realization, that's liberation from misery, that's connecting with our true bliss.
I recently tried to give a class about this. If you remember my attempt to give a class about this, and Krishna saying, I give the mind an intelligence by which to come to me.
Yeah.
So this is like human form, body includes this intelligence by which to realize we're not the body.
Yeah.
And we have to add the water of knowledge.
Yeah.
We have to add water of knowledge, because otherwise the intelligence, the mind just goes so many places, like the paths. We have to add bona fide knowledge. And then that's like the water for the mind and bones to churn, and then we can go somewhere.
Thanks for sharing, Bhakti Devin. Hare Krishna. Krishna, you're referencing that verse 10.10 Bhagavad Gita, te samsatata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Krishna says, if you're sincere, I'll give you the intelligence, I'll give you the knowledge to come to me. So all we need to do is be sincere. Simple, not necessarily easy for persons like myself who's invested in material attachment, because we can think of like material senses, material intelligence. So how can we spiritualize? But ultimately, the intelligence, the senses, this body, it's meant to engage in bhakti. That's the ultimate function. We can misuse the senses and engage it in material activity that entangles us in illusion and delusion and suffering for us and others more and more. But the ultimate purpose of the tongue is to taste prasadam and vibrate Srimad Bhagavatam. The ultimate purpose of the hands and legs is to walk to places where there's kirtan and dance in kirtan. And the ultimate purpose of the intelligence is to use the intelligence to make the fine distinctions about what will really serve my highest good and what will get in the way.
And the ultimate purpose of the emotions to experience love for God.
Yeah. It gets to the root of personalism. There's spiritual anger and there's spiritual fear. Srila Prabhupada said his greatest anxiety is that his followers are not scared enough of Maya. So there's debilitating fear, like, oh, if I chant Hare Krishna, then what will people think of me? Or if, there's debilitating fear that we could allow to get in the way of our spiritual growth. Or it's like, I'm so attached to the approval of people who are like foolish. I'm so attached to their approval that like I'm not going to rock the boat because like and then at some point I'll just go along to get along. My whole goal is to look good within this particular group, look good, feel really bad, but not let alone put on. So there's material fear. Then there's spiritual fear. Like I'm realizing I'm susceptible. I'm so scared of Maya. Let me be sure I'm up at 4 a.m. for morning program. Let me make sure I'm clearing time to read Prabhupada's books. Let that fear, that spiritual fear, it moves me. I mean, on higher levels, it can be like Mother Yashoda is fearful that Krishna's going to get sick because he ate dirt. So that's spiritual fear. The gopis get angry at Krishna. So we can also, we have like, actually I have a situation now. I'm in some correspondence thread, and someone is just really, from my point of view, someone's denigrating the sincere service of a group of sincere followers of Prabhupada, and someone is disregarding and dismissing and minimizing, and so I go, oh, okay, no, I'm clear. It's my service and it's not about me. It's not about me being insulted, but like, no, I'm angry at that. I'm angry at that, and within 1 week, I'm going to write a letter to that thread and say, yeah, I don't appreciate this. I don't. These are sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada and like that. So there's spiritual anger. There's, we can take like ugly envy, we can transform it to like the energy of admiration. Like, she's doing a lot more service than me, so I could give in to my material urges and I'm going to gossip about her behind her back to try to pull her down in some way. Or let me take that energy and say, I actually admire, she's so dedicated. So let me pray for a drop of that sincerity. We take all that energy. It's not about eliminating it. That's impersonalism. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all. I welcome you to stay for Shadam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Hare Krishna. Yes, please have a seat either at the dining room table or here in the temple room, and we'll enjoy prasadam.